And now for the Kansas Wesleyan University's Coaches Show with the voice of the Coyotes, Tyler Henry. And now, here's Tyler.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in for another installment of the Kansas Wesleyan Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group. So good to be with you once again, and we're joined here at the top of the hour by head coach Matt Myers. And Coach, first and foremost, how was your weekend?
It was very good. Yeah, I got some time with the kids, and had some players over on Sunday night for dinner, and had a good time.
Well, always good to come in to start a week with a victory Monday, but, even by winning standards, it felt like a dominant victory that you guys put together on Saturday. What were your overall thoughts on the way you guys beat Bethel?
Just looking at it, from the team aspect of it anyways, like the macro level, we had a ton of guys that had to play. I mean, we have 12 guys. I think I counted, if you count going in the game, there was about 10, and we had 2 guys that went out in the game. One of our super backs or fullback position, H-back position, and then we had dislocation of an elbow from one of our defensive linemen. And so, we went into it with a lot of guys out, and we had some guys that went down, and we had to play team football in a way that was, that it forced us to be better all the way around. I mean, I'm talking about like the 2s and the 3s and the guys that, you don't see play a ton, I guess, necessarily. And there's only 114 reps taken on offense and defense on Saturday. So, we had to play other guys, which is was awesome to see. And the result was positive, and the guys that had to go in, responded well, and that's always good to see.
Defensively, you guys really got after it. I know you and I talked a little bit post-game about it. Only 3 sacks just because of how much they ran. 18 tackles for loss. What was the best thing that you saw out of your front 7 in that game?
Yeah, like the guys, and it's kind of the product of after you play friends, because they're the most downhill running physical team you usually play throughout the year. And so, maybe we need to play them game 1 every single year, but it helped us because they can, they're kind of resetting their defensive posture up front, and and you're not necessarily looking for plays, I guess, defensively. You're running, your only goal is to be violent and run through as many hips as possible. They had a very athletic quarterback. You saw him take off and run, right after we had the injury there and a pause in the game. And you're like, oh man, like you kind of, we almost forgot how fast he was and how athletic he was. But really the demeanor and the posture and the way that we played defense was much improved from, the first couple weeks of the season. So to me, like that's the biggest positive. And then obviously the guys that had to go in and play for us are, stepped up and performed.
Well, let's talk about one of those guys that had to step up and perform. I was really impressed with what you got out of Richard Lara. He didn't try to do too much. 10 for 17, 129 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Also stepped up and ran well, I thought, in that game. How did you feel about what your backup quarterback gave you having to step into that role?
Yeah, Richard's started a couple games for us over the years. He came in and replaced our quarterback in 22 and kind of gave us a spark. And then, he did a really good job of managing the game. Now there was 2 incomplete passes, which he knows he should have completed, and then the goal going forward is to make sure that we can start converting third downs. They pack the box and all that stuff, and laterally running. Richard isn't necessarily the fastest guy at the quarterback position, but he does make good decisions with the football, which is important. And really, like some of it, you can go back and watch it, but hopefully if he keeps throwing the ball down the field and doing that type of stuff, like good stuff happens. And so I think the goal going forward is to make sure that when we go out there and we're even first and 10, the down and distance shouldn't matter. I want us to rip the ball down the field and start really challenging the defense vertically and putting the ball up there, because it. As long as they're going to come in and pack the box and try to prevent us from running the ball, that's fine. We need to put some more pressure on the back end. Even if it's a 0-yard gain or incomplete, it's still worth that risk, and we just need to keep putting pressure on that. And I talked with Coach Bauer, on Sunday, and we're gonna change a few things up and how we, kind of, I guess, conceptually look at it and offensively, and hopefully that gets us going I would say quicker, but give us some more explosive plays in the pass game.
I thought we saw kind of a James Bauer masterclass a little bit last week. Bethel did a good job, I thought, of stuffing the box. They really did load it up. They made it tough for you guys to run inside. So you bring out a different package. You force them to respect your ability to stretch the field with guys like Fuel, and especially, moving forward, Alexander Elam. And then you start getting things moving up the middle with guys like Dayton Taylor. What did you think about just that adjustment you guys were able to make and how that really opened up the running game?
Yeah, really it's awesome. And we talked about it after the Friends game of ways we can get some more production out of other guys. And Bauer dialed it up. I mean, the Fuel touchdown was a great call, great play. I mean, everything, when those type of plays hit, obviously you're super excited, and because that's how you draw it up. Not everything always goes perfect when you're calling offensive plays and playing football, because you don't know what the defense is going to do necessarily. So you're kind of looking for the right time, the right opportunity, and then Buck, who's was our offensive player of the game. I mean, he averaged 7.7 yards a carry. I think he carried the ball like 9 times, but that. Anytime you're doing that, and you at least if you have that in the back pocket, not only did it help us win the game and help us move the ball down the field, and he busted that long run for a touchdown to kind of seal the deal, but it also is going to put a lot of pressure on our opponents going forward, because they have to, start making a game plan for when he goes into the game. So there's a lot of positives to take away from just him going into the game and being productive.
Just mentally, I mean, how big is putting a W over a 4-0 team into the win column coming off of kind of the slower start to the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. We are who we are. We're 2-3. We got to go and win this week to get back to 500 and go into a divisional play, ramped up, ready to go. But I said it a couple weeks ago, we're a really good team. We have really good players. Now, some of those guys are injured, and they're going to come back from injuries, and the bye is going to be, a really welcome sight here after this next game. But the players that went out there and performed for us did exactly what we asked them to do, and I would say a little bit above and beyond. They responded in a way that as a coach, you hope and expect, I guess. But when it happens, I'm very satisfied with the effort and the posture and I would say even the mindset and the types of things that you can hear being said on the sideline, all right, so we weren't great on third down. All right, who cares? Defense is going to be all right. We're going to go out there. We punted the ball probably a few more times than we wanted to, but it still forced us to respond to maybe not catastrophic negative events, which happened against Southwestern, where stuff kind of imploded on us there for about 6 minutes, but it forced the team, I'll emphasize that, to respond and go win a football game against a really good team.
Week after week, it feels like we have seen Alexander Elam become a bigger and bigger part of this offense. I thought last week was his masterclass. 3 catches for 22 yards, 2 carries for 17 yards and a touchdown. He can stretch the field. He runs good routes. He's got sure hands. I mean, what has been the biggest thing, in your opinion, that has led to the success that he's been able to give you?
Yeah, I mean, most of those were just some RPOs, the balls that he caught early, and that's probably something we can go back to. But he, Alexander Elam is not the biggest, fastest guy on the field. Really, he showed up in the spring, and the reason why, he did make a lot of plays for us in the spring when we were going through spring ball, but he was our best perimeter blocker, which just tells you that he's a young, gritty player that takes pride in everything that he's doing. And I noticed him when we were just doing some perimeter drills, and he was just perimeter blocking against our defense. And I was like, what's going on with this guy? He's, and that's important. I think that's who we want to be fundamentally and foundationally. We want guys that play hard all the time and that will do the stuff that may not be the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheets, I would say. That's what he does. So it's good to see him get in the end zone and get some love from the from the offensive play calls and by happenstance. Coach Bauer's not calling plays for individuals. That's
right.
That's not how we operate. We coach conceptually, and we expect whoever's out there, all 11 guys that are out there, to do it. And the goal is always to make sure that we're 2 to 3 deep at every position, so the next guy is up, which is unfortunately has to happen for us right now, because we just have a lot of guys on the injured, but that's the way it is, and it'll make us a better team going down the stretch here.
Well, last thing for you here, Coach, you get one more game before the bye. It's another test here, 4-1 McPherson. You guys will have to travel to their place on Saturday. What stands out to you the most with the Bulldogs, and what were your biggest keys to the game to pick up a big win and get back to 500 before the bye?
I think a lot of it will be similar. Like we need to make sure we're able to run the ball, whichever form or fashion that exists. We need to keep making sure we're stressing them vertically with the passing game. And defensively, it'll be a little bit more difficult. I think they do a couple different things. And Coach Fiskus and I have a really good relationship, and I haven't talked to him yet this week, but it's always fun to play him because he always has something specific drawn up for us. Or like I know they're doing something right now. So some of the fun of coaching against guys you've known for a long time and guys you respect, like especially Fiskus at Mac, like they'll be a good team, and we'll need to come in and play lights out. But I'm excited. Like I'm excited for the team. I'm excited for the guys. Like that's what I told them. We fully expect the guys that we're going to suit up and to go and play to be able to perform. So no excuses with injuries or anything like that. Like we got to go play and win the rest of our games.
Sounds good. Well, Coach Myers, thank you again so much for your time. Good luck to your Coyotes at McPherson.
All right, appreciate you.
Once again, that was head coach Matt Myers on the KWU Coaches Show presented by Billings Group. We'll step away, but when we return, we'll hear from defensive lineman Josh King Bradley. That conversation next on KINA.
We spend 1/3 of our lives working to build our wealth. With over 50 years of combined experience, Billings Group wants to be there to help manage yours. If you're planning for retirement or looking for financial coaching, then come see us on Westchester Drive, east of the YMCA, or visit our website at billingsgroup.com. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services. Member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory products and services offered by investment advisory representatives through RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. RFG Advisory, Billings Group, and Private Client Services are unaffiliated entities.
When life deals you a bad call, throw the challenge flag and fight for your rights. With more than 110 years of combined experience, the legal team at Carter & Alt Duell in Salina help their clients fight to overturn bad life calls, DUI arrest, divorce, child support, and custody decisions, or protecting your Second Amendment rights. Wade Carter and Charles Alt Duell fight for you every day. Get the winning legal team at Carter & Alt Duell on your side to fight for your rights. Find them on the web at cadlawlc.com. That's cadlawlc.com.
Now back to the Kansas Wesleyan University's Coaches Show with Tyler Henry.
Welcome back in here on the KWU Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group. We're joined now by junior defensive lineman Josh King Bradley. Josh, first and foremost, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So this is your third season officially here in Salina. I was curious, now that you've had a chance to be around this program for a while, are you starting to kind of feel like the wily old veteran out there?
Yes, like a lot of the younger guys, they look to me as like a leader, like a leader aspect, Last year, I'd probably say I was still kind of not really getting into the groove of things, but just following along with, like, what I normally do. I'm not really, like, a big speaker. I'm not a big speech guy. I go out there and I just work. And this year I definitely had to step outside of my comfort zone and just do a lot more, like, just being a leader out there,
Well, you've certainly led by example. I was curious. I wanted to take you all the way back, even further than, your high school playing days. But, when you think back, when did your love of football begin? And what's kind of wanted to make you just continue dedicating so much of your life to this game week in, week out?
Honestly, my first love was basketball.
Okay.
When I was in middle school. And what my cousins and my mom kept telling me is, like, I was one of the bigger kids, middle school, going into high school. And my uncle, who had played some professional ball, told me that I needed to pursue football and just follow along that path, and I could make something out of it. And eventually I ended up giving up basketball, and it was actually like freshman year or going into my sophomore year of high school. I was like, okay, let me take football like 100%, like all in. And that's when I started. They put me at defensive tackle, and I just built from there. But yeah, I wasn't really like a born, and I love football, but at the time, my younger ages, I was big on basketball.
Well, and everybody in the purple and gold is certainly glad that you ended up dedicating everything to football. You have been, as I've described you a couple times, a one-man wrecking crew. Congrats are in order. You're the defensive player of the week here in the KCAC. 3 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss for you personally last week. What did you feel like was clicking for you against Bethel?
Going into that game, I was really dealing with what I was, like, me personally, I would call it like a performance woe. I think I had no sacks coming into it, maybe 0.5. And no TFLs. So, like, each week that I would end up not with the stat line I wanted, I would just make sure, like, back to the drawing board after every game, loss or win, me as a player, let me go back to the drawing board and just and see what it is that I need to work on and perfect to start seeing the results that I want to see on the field. And this week was definitely one of those weeks where I just everything that I had drawn up in my head just playing to perfection. A lot of speed to power, utilizing my speed and my strength both, like, in unison. Just, yeah.
Well, and overall, I mean, where did you feel like you saw the team take a step forward? Because, again, I threw the stat out to you before we started talking here, but 18 tackles for loss, that doesn't just happen overnight. Where did you feel like the defense took a step forward last week?
Going into this week, the defense, one thing we did differently is we really challenged the offense. We brought a lot of energy, no matter what time of day it was or when the practice was. When we got out there, we just, like, everybody's yelling, everybody's loud. It's like a game atmosphere in practice, and that's how it really needs to be every week. So I feel like preparation-wise, we really everybody was really locked in. Like, the most locked in since ever, really. Like, compared to the last weeks, Evangel, Southwestern, Friends, like, if we would have came in with that amount of just energy, I feel like, those games could have been differently for us as well.
You take a look at the guys that are around you in the trenches on the defense. There are so many returning faces from last year. Sloan Simpson, Jordan Diggins, Dylan Worrell, you got John Apoku Papio, Muhammad Abishark. When you know the guys that are coming back from last season, is there a sense of comfort going into these early games where you know what the guys lining up next to you are going to do?
It's a sense of, like, knowing you have guys on the field that know their jobs and they're going to execute them to the best of their ability. Like, it's different when you have a younger group out there that might have not had the experience of going against some of these teams, but for us, like, we've played these teams, we know how their offense feels. So, like, it gives a sense of comfort for not only the offense, but maybe, like, the secondary and even the coaches. Just knowing that in the trenches, like, the run game is going to be locked up. Pass game is going to be seeing a lot of disruption, So that's what we bring in the trenches.
And who are some guys on that D line? Obviously you're one of the big names that people think of immediately. Who are the guys in the D line that you feel like maybe don't get the credit that maybe they deserve?
Honestly, like, all the guys that get to see that field, I feel like deserve recognition because we have guys who could go anywhere else and be a main name over at those schools. Caleb Smith, Jordan Diggins, John. They just moved Nigel up, Nigel Lockett to nose, and he made a big impact, bringing aggression at that nose position, giving pressure up the middle, and I feel like that's what really helped us contain that mobile quarterback. So it's just really like a D-line as a whole. I just feel like we're just full of, like, dogs. We bring the energy every practice.
I wanted to talk about your game here a little bit because I think one of the things that you get with Josh King Bradley is consistency. You look at your career here, 12.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks in your first season, 4.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss last year. You're right back on track after last week. But, even in the finer margins, where do you feel like you've seen your game personally grow the most from setting foot on campus to now?
I feel like my game in terms of, like, adjusting and just, like, not getting in my head, like, the mental aspect of it is definitely grown for me. Back in high school, since I started taking football seriously at such a a late time. I expected a lot in such little amounts of time, and which sometimes when I wouldn't have the game I wanted to have, I just get in my head. Sometimes even during the game, and that was one of the biggest things that like my parents tell me and my teammates tell me is just don't get in your head, just continue following through and going through with what you know works. And my years over here have taught me like keep a steady head, level head, and just whatever I plan up in my head, just stick to it, you know. And that's what I did last week, and I'm glad I was able to perfect that.
Well, and I think last week we also got kind of the full picture. We've seen flashes of it, but we saw what this defense is capable of. First of all, when you guys don't have to spend 35 to 40 minutes a game on the field, but also, when everything's clicking, when it seems like everybody's gelling, what feels like to you the biggest strength of the Coyote defense as a whole when things are firing the way they should?
The biggest strength for us, when everything is clicking, I feel like would be like speed. We have speed at all levels, from the D-line to the linebackers to the DBs, and that's what Coach teaches us every practice is just play with ruthless aggression and mindless speed, because especially at this level of the game, it's just like when you play fast, one, you'll stand out, but two, you'll be able to make plays. And I feel like us as a defense, like we realize that, like, even if you mess up on your job, play fast and cause a disruption somewhere, and we all realize that. And I feel like that's what, when the defense is clicking, that's what really stands out for us is just the speed of the game, just slowing down for everybody.
Well, last thing for you here, sir, but again, you look at another good team that you'll have to travel to coming up this week. You guys will take on McPherson. They come in 4-0. Also, the offensive player of the week on the other side, and Tristan Szabo. What do you guys have to do as a defense to make Szabo uncomfortable, and where do you feel like the biggest keys to the game will be here for the Coyote defense?
Biggest keys is definitely going to be building from where we left off here, dealing with I seen it, Szabo got quarterback. He got offensive player of the week, and he's going to be clicking on all cylinders. We're going to be having to go to their house, and like the offense is going to be smooth sailing. It's going to be our job to really just stop that momentum, and that's going to probably be the game plan going into the week. Is this building off of what we had last week, building off of what we had going on Saturday, and just like, brick by brick, stacking it.
Well, defensive leader, one-man wrecking crew, defensive player of the week, Josh King Bradley, thank you again so much for stopping by. Best of luck to your Coyotes on Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Once again, that was KW defensive lineman Josh King Bradley visiting with us here on the show. Our conversation presented, as always, by the Jeff Wells Agency of American Family Insurance. We'll step away, but the KW Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group, rolls on next here on KINA.
Harbin Construction has been showing integrity, innovation, and building relationships since 1954. Harbin has been doing amazing commercial contracting work in the Kansas area. A fun fact about KWU: Harbin Construction founded just 6 years after KWU's Memorial Library was built in 1948. This building was dedicated to the 24 students who lost their life in World War II. Students helped transport the books from Carnegie Science Hall to the new building using stretchers. Harbin Construction is a proud sponsor of the KWU Coyotes and sharing history of our Salinas College with you. Harbin, your construction partner for life.
A house fire can destroy everything you've worked so hard for in a matter of minutes. Is your home at risk? Jay's Electric in Salina can help. In addition to electrical inspections to ensure your wiring is up to snuff, Jay's offers affordable smoke detector service plans with both monthly and yearly inspection options available. Are your smoke detectors working properly? Have those batteries been replaced lately? Learn more at jayselectric.com. That's Jaes electric.com. Jay's Electric, helping you power through.
Now back to the Kansas Wesleyan University's Coaches Show with Tyler Henry.
Welcome back in here on the KW Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group. We're joined by Justin Sullivan, defensive coordinator of your Coyotes. And Coach Sullivan, first and foremost, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
So a huge performance for your team against Bethel. You hold them to just 2 field goals, never sniffed the red zone, never sniffed the end zone. Overall, what were your thoughts on just a dominant performance out of the defense on Saturday?
Yeah, we played a great game. That's kind of usually what happens. Well, at least what happened for us last year, too. Now, granted, we didn't give up as many points early on in the season last year, but once you hit that Friends game and you play the triple option team, and then you kind of start to realize that, like, if you just play all out, lower, and more violent than the other team, like really good things will happen for you defensively. So I think that's kind of what we saw transition into the Bethel game, where it was just we were just splitting gaps, getting into the backfield, and making them having to make split-second decisions, and then just tackling them. And then that's the biggest thing that happened for us on Saturday.
Well, and tackling is one thing. Tackling behind the line of scrimmage is another. I know you guys don't generally, nerd out over the stats, but 18 tackles for loss in this game. I don't think I've ever seen that at any level of football. What did you see out of your front and especially out of your box in that game?
Yeah, well, we were looking at the stats after the game, and we were like, man, we got 18 TFLs. Like, that's pretty sweet. And then we looked at them, and we were like, only 3 of those were sacks.
Yeah, I think a lot of those. They're considered running plays.
That's
but 6 one way, half dozen the other.
Yeah. So we were like looking at that. We're like, my goodness, like that's insane. But yeah, no, just the front played really well. They really bought into the scheme that we had put in that week, and we were able to just again split a lot of gaps, kind of confuse the O-line, and make a lot of plays in the backfield, kind of like we envisioned it happening earlier on in the week.
Obviously, things shake out, the way you want to in that game. You don't give up a touchdown. You keep them out of the red zone. But at the same time, what are some improvements that you guys are still looking to make as a defense heading into the last week here before the bye?
Yeah, again, it's kind of the same thing I've said the last couple of weeks, where it's like we are this close to just like being, I don't want to say perfect, but like just doing everything right all the time. Like there were a couple of plays throughout that game where we just we lost our man, or we didn't do our responsibility like the best that we could have. Like once we eliminate those few plays, those few mistakes, then you turn that into, maybe it's a shutout, or maybe that we hold them negative rushing yards versus what they net, like 38 or something.
It wasn't much.
Yeah, though you take out those few little things, those few big plays that they had, and then it feels like a completely different ball game because it's just a true all-out domination on all levels. Well,
one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about that you and I have been kind of discussing throughout the season, getting off the field on third down, a huge emphasis for you as a team. 4 of 15, that's their final line on third down, but you also had a couple of big turnovers. Do you feel like your defense did a good job just getting off the field, it seemed like, all night?
Yeah, it's way better when you can get off the field on third downs. You can just tell, like, your guys aren't as tired and dead. Going for a 4 to 7 play drive versus a 8 to 15 play drive is a huge difference on just the way that the guys are able to go back out the next drive and perform. And it just makes it easier, too, because then you don't have to really worry about subbing as much because your guys are healthy, fresh, ready to go. And for us, that's a huge thing. And I think that's what you can kind of tell, like, 18 TFLs and holding them to, like, very little rushing yards is just based off the fact that we were able to get off the field and be healthy, fresh, and ready to go for the next drive.
Well, and speaking of that, when you look at, the overall numbers from that game, your team ends up coming up with 2 big interceptions. It seems like big swing plays, but the other thing that I noticed too, you guys were only on the field. It was a pretty even split time of possession wise. Do you feel like that kind of leads to less fatigue when you guys are spending less time obviously out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just, again, you can tell. And we were a little short at the backer spot, had a couple of guys down for injuries, so it was kind of one of the worries for me going into the game. But then again, like, we just got off the field so much, like, the guys were able to sit down, relax, catch their breath, and then roll back out there again.
Josh King Bradley was named Defensive Player of the Week. He had 4.5 tackles for loss. He had 3 sacks. He got a couple there at the very end. But, boy, it just seemed like something clicked and connected for him. He's been good for you all season long, but that really felt like kind of a breakout performance. He got back to the old Josh King Bradley, I thought, last week.
Yeah, that I think was his coming out game. And statistically, like, that's kind of, I think, what he needed. Because obviously, like, he knows he's a very good player, but sometimes the stats lie. So I think that game, him going out there getting 3 sacks is huge for him, and it's huge for the team too, because they look at him like he's a leader and he's the dude of this defense. And then now that the production's there for him, it's going to promote some really good things within us, I think.
You mentioned, and I'm not asking for any names here, but you mentioned a little bit dinged up in the linebacker core. Now, obviously, a little bit dinged up on the front as well. Who are some new faces that you think might be stepping up here last week, this week, next week that we might hear taking on bigger roles here?
Yeah, obviously one guy that played on Saturday, Tristan Garcia, he played a fantastic game, and he's a guy that's kind of struggled early on in fall camp, but like has come together recently in the last couple of weeks. So it's really good to see him go out there and perform really well. Caleb Smith and Carlos Ibarra are 2 guys up on the front that I think, injury pending and kind of like how everything shakes out, are 2 guys that could see some reps for us coming throughout at least the bye week, maybe into the next couple of weeks after that. But I think we're very deep. I think we have confidence in these guys that are underneath the guys that have been playing for us. So I'm just kind of excited to see what they can go out there and do.
One other guy that I wanted to ask you about that came in late in the game, Nigel Lockett. He's only a junior. You look at him, he's listed 6'3", 245. He looks even bigger than that. I thought he played really well in the couple of snaps that he got.
Yeah, Lockett's been a project for a little bit now, but it is good to see. It's good when guys that kind of struggle coming in, with whatever it may be, kind of like turn that corner a little bit and just start to like hit everything on an uphill stride, and that's what we saw out of Lockett, and then obviously he was able to come out and play some of the first snaps for us and did a fantastic job. I mean, the effort was there, the execution was there, like he's just manhandling the center, and it was great to watch.
I didn't have a chance to speak with you last week, but I was curious. You ever seen 8 fumbles in one game before? Take you back to Friends for just a moment.
Yeah, no. I mean, I wish we would have gotten all of them too, which is the insane part. And they even missed a fumble.
I was going to say, like Coach said, it should have been 9. I certainly didn't see the knee down on the.
That knee was not down at the 50. I'll live on that one.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we don't usually do ad reads right in the middle of these, but I do want to remind folks, if you're looking for a great vacation spot, you can always head down to Dupree Island. Jordan Dupree's been so freaking good again this year, and I'm not trying to stick to the stats because, again, I know you look at the numbers, they've been pretty mundane, but it's the same thing as last year. Quarterbacks just are not throwing his way.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't either. And it's not that Dupree is a great player, but I mean, it's the fact that he's been doing this since 2020.
Yep.
He's been at the varsity level playing corner since he was a freshman in college. Like, even though there may be a mismatch there athletically or whatever, he has the experience and the ability to make up for that and his responsibilities. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw out him either.
Fair enough. Well, one fun matchup that you're going to have a chance to see coming up this Saturday, you guys have the Defensive Player of the Week in Josh King Bradley. You will face the Offensive Player of the Week in the conference in Tristan Szabo. When you think back to Zabo's game, you've seen him now for a couple of years. What are some of the biggest challenges that he presents as a passer?
I think that for him, like one of the main things is, and he kind of for me in comparison is like a Brett Favre-esque kind of a player. He's just going to go out there and take some shots, and regardless if they hit or not, it puts a lot of stress on the defensive backs. So that's one of the things that I admire about his game and watching him play is that he's just going to go out there and he's going to risk it. And
well, and outside of Szabo, I mean, they've got some good tools there as well. What are some of the biggest challenges that they present? And, what worked for you guys last year when you really kind of shut them up that you feel like you might work again this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, if the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour again, that always helps. But, I think for us, again, it'll be just we have to dominate the front. And I think we learned that last Saturday, that especially if we can start just getting more pressure on these quarterbacks, that it's just going to work out for us in the end. So that'll be the main thing, I think, for us going into this week is like we just have to dominate the front again, get a lot of pressure, force them to make quick decisions, and then make plays when they do.
Well, and you talk about the front, obviously that's going to be a big key, but kind of looking more on the broader view, last thing for you. Overall, what would you say are the biggest keys for the KW defense, and what do you have to do to pick up another win here, get back to 500 before the bye?
Yeah, I'd say for us, for sure, is we need to go into that game again with the same attitude, and we need to get at least 8+ TFLs with a couple of sacks thrown in there, and then we just need to win the turnover battle.
Sounds good. Well, Coach Sullivan, thank you again so much for your time. Best of luck to your Coyotes on Saturday.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
Once again, that was Coyote Defensive Coordinator Justin Sullivan. We'll step away, but when we return, the KW Coaches Show presented by Billings Group rolls on here on KINA.
With record-breaking enrollment, great new facilities, and top-notch activities, Kansas Wesleyan's the place to be. Whether you want to study nursing, elementary education, criminal justice, or social work, our academic programs will open doors for your future, all while you participate in activities like music, theater, or athletics. Learn more about why KWU's the place to be by visiting kwu.edu. That's kwu.edu.
At Gambino's Pizza, we serve more toppings, more taste, and more value. Our all-you-can-eat buffet, open every day from 11 to 1:30 p.m., is the only pizza buffet in town. For only $13, every member of your family can find something they will enjoy with options like classic and specialty pizzas or the appetizers and desserts. Not in the mood for pizza? You can order a fresh salad, hearty sandwiches, or creamy pasta from the menu. Dine in at the Salina or Hayes location or order online at gambinospizza.com. You're going to love it.
Now back to the Kansas Wesleyan University's Coaches Show with Tyler Henry.
Welcome back in here to on the KW Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group. We're joined now by Sean Mooney, quarterback for your Coyote Developmental Program. And Sean, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking some time and coming on the show today.
I appreciate you for inviting me out here. I really enjoy it.
You came to the Coyotes by way of Waco, Texas. Transfer in there in a moment. I'll talk about that. But, overall, I was kind of curious. What led to your decision to want to come down to Salina and don the purple and gold?
I have a really long past. I came from Delta State, which is a D2 program. I was redshirted there. I entered the transfer portal, actually, and I got into a rec. So, I had to wait a year. And then this was one of the only opportunities that I had. And I really liked what Coach Leonard, which is the coach that recruited me, was telling me on the phone. We had a really good conversations for about a month or two. So it was a really good decision.
And as much as you're willing to share, what has kind of the road back been like for you, and how has it been kind of readjusting to the speed of the game and everything else?
I'm a 2021 high school graduate, so for me, playing true football has been about 3 years. I'm getting back into the reins of it, adjusting back to the speed, getting back into the best game shape possible. During that year off, I gained a lot because I really couldn't do anything. So just adjusting, and we go to meetings, all the practices. I really enjoy the program and how they're helping me get back and just get to the top of my game.
You mentioned coming in here as a transfer from Delta State. Before we talk about the difference there between speeds, what was the biggest difference that you noticed from high school to the speed of the game at Delta State?
In high school, I played in the hardest district in Texas football. So I played against teams like Duncanville, DeSoto, Cedar Hill, and all of them. So the change for me wasn't too drastic. Those are programs that had a bunch of high caliber players. Every team we played against had 30 plus D1 players. My team didn't have any of those. So, it wasn't too big of an adjustment for me.
I feel like people around here don't really have, a frame of reference for what high school football in the state of Texas is like. What is it like playing in those big stadiums against all those D1 guys week in and week out just on Friday nights?
Man, it's crazy. You have guys that are dead serious, 6'8", 300 pounds. You're getting chased by those guys. You have to maneuver around a little bit differently than you do at a lot of other programs. So, it's a big difference in just the speed and physicality that the DBs have. You got some 6'3", 215 guys at DB. It's kind of wild.
Developmental programs are something that, it's kind of unique to the NAIA. You don't see that all around. You mentioned this was kind of one of the only offers to get back and retool your game, kind of get back to the top of your game. What has this opportunity meant to you for a chance to get in and get some real game reps again?
It's just the art of competition. I love competition, and I know every athlete aspires to go to, the heights that, the pros, you know what I'm saying? That's everybody's goal. And this just allows me, this is just another building block to possibly get there. This is better than not doing it at all. Everybody has a certain time limit to where they can play football. And once that time ends, it's over. And so I didn't want to end that journey for me too quickly.
Well, and I was also curious, where do you feel like, because I feel like it's probably a pretty steep incline going from taking the year off to, getting back in the saddle. Where do you feel like you've made the biggest strides at quarterback this year?
Just staying healthy. Our team has been injury riddled all year. We have a good group of guys. I really see a potential in a lot of these younger players. I'm one of the older players on my team, so just to see their development and just seeing how they have progressed from week 1 training camp to now, just getting deeper into the playbooks, because we have a bunch of plays, and not all the times do we use all of those plays, but for them to really remember them and actually use it and run it properly in the game, it's really impressive to me.
Well, and speaking of the playbook, I was kind of curious to get your thoughts on that, because one of the other unique things with KW, you run the same things across the board. It doesn't matter if you're playing on Saturdays, you're playing on Sundays. It's the same playbook. Do you feel like that kind of makes it more comfortable knowing that if your name and your number's called, you already know what to expect?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of trust there. Back to high school, your JV isn't running the same varsity playbook. And so that's a unique thing here that I really feel is great, because here at this program I see that not only the coaches but the players have a next man up mentality. And so with the way the season has been going, with injuries and things of that nature, that's how everybody needs to be. And so that's really good that everybody can be on the same page and not be confused.
Overall, now that you've had a chance to kind of settle into it, what would you say kind of defines the culture of football here at Kansas Wesleyan?
We're hardworking, and we're not going to let anything hold us down. We both sides of the team varsity and our developmental team, we faced a bunch of downs, and nobody's really down in the dumps about it. Nobody's really sad about it. It's next play. We got to forget about it. You can't have a long-term memory and just keep all those plays and games just holding you back, because that really messes up your game in the long run. And so it's just next play up.
When you look at the quarterback room here at Kansas Wesleyan, and I was curious too, as somebody who gets to play alongside these guys in practice, if you feel like you've been able to learn anything from guys like Byron McNair or Richard Lara ahead of you?
Yeah, we have a really good quarterback room here, 6 deep. That's a pretty deep quarterback room. I've taken a little bit of everything from these guys. Just how they react with the team. Being the only new quarterback to this program this year, I really took a liking to how Byron McNair leads, his guys. I see how he interacts with them. Richard Lara, he has a really good, aura around the room. I really like Buck Taylor. He's a really nice guy. I really like all of them. Kai always has a good energy, and that's really that. And my boy Chuck, don't let me talk about Chuck. We're the only 2 Texas guys here, so it's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I like their energy.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, too, that I was curious to get your thoughts on, Kansas Wesleyan has really put, a heavy emphasis on their developmental programs, making sure that everything is even across the board, making sure that you guys get the attention, the equipment, everything else that you deserve. Is that an emphasis that you feel like you've been able to kind of feel as a first-year player here?
Yes, sir. No one goes without on our team, and so I really appreciate that, because that's not the most cases at a lot of these programs that we have out here.
What are just your overall thoughts on the first 5 developmental program games, if you take them all as kind of a package deal?
It's been rough. You know what I'm saying? That's really it. It's been rough, but I feel like we can pull through and get some positives for us going. That's what I'm looking forward to, and that's what I'm trying to do this next game this Sunday against Hastings.
Well, and I was also curious, as somebody who's seen, a bunch of different looks. You've seen what high-level high school football in Texas is like. You've seen what D2 football is like. How do you feel about the level of competition that you face against guys like Benedictine, guys like Coffeyville? What is the level of competition like, in your opinion?
Oh, no, those are some pretty good guys. The team we just played this weekend, actually, they had some really good big guys as well. Size wasn't an issue for them. They had the roster depth, and those are things that I'm used to seeing at those higher levels of football, like high-level high school, a decently high level of college football that I've seen. Those are some really good guys.
Last thing for you here, sir, but overall, what would you say are the biggest keys to the game? What would you like to see out of yourself in the matchup with Hastings this Saturday?
I would like a faster start. We start off pretty slow, and that really comes back to bite us in the end. I feel like we had a few good drives pushing down the field, but we just never got to that point to where it's just, let's get some guaranteed points. I had a few plays to where I feel like I should have done some things better. I feel like every play that isn't successful is my fault. I don't try to place any blame on anybody if someone runs the wrong route. Hey, get back at it. The next play, there's something that I could have done better there. As the quarterback and the leader of the team, I just feel like I can do more. And I expect everyone to have that same mentality for themselves as well. You know what I'm saying? Just try to do the best you can.
Sean, thank you again so much for your time. Good luck to your Coyotes this week.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Once again, that was developmental quarterback Sean Mooney here on the KWU Coaches Show, presented by Billings Group, and that'll just about do it for us. But a reminder, the Coyotes are back in action this Saturday, taking on the McPherson Bulldogs down in McPherson. 1 o'clock kickoff, noon countdown to kickoff show, live on KINA right here on the radio. That's our show, but before we go, wanted to say a special thank you to Matt Myers, to Justin Sullivan, to Josh King Bradley, and to Sean Mooney for stopping by. We'll see you this Saturday on KINA.
This has been a presentation of Kansas Wesleyan University's Coaches Show with Tyler Henry, brought to you by CADLaw and Eagle Communications on the Kansas Wesleyan University Network and KINA.